have Gary Sanders, an awesome professional turner here, and he does beautiful work. You would pick his work out anywhere in a gallery and know it's him. So welcome, Gary.
What I'm going to do first is, since most of the miniatures that I'm doing now are these little glue up jobbers, I'll kind of go through the process. I will glue up. This is going to be a small vessel and maybe a box or something like that. But no matter what size of a glue up, even something this big, I basically make a frame like this so that when I'm clamping it all down, they don't try to slide all over the place. And then I'll cut all the framework off and have a piece like this. And then to mount it to the lathe, I cut the corners off so that it's easier to turn. And then I will get corners, like this is off of one that I've already done. I'll get the corners off and I will cut them in half, and then I will have like two pieces like this. Well, actually, before I do that, I will run it across a joiner to make sure that the surface is flat. And to do that, I made this little slide because I already lost part of a finger thanks to a joiner. So with this, it will hook the wood back here, and I can slide it and not have to get my fingers anywhere around this angular piece to try to join it. So I'll do that, glue them up. I made these little blocks that I will set them in, and I don't draw a line, but I will not put the epoxy, say 1/4 of an inch or so from this edge, and I'll put it all the way down in both the edges, and I do that on both sides so that I have a dry spot up here that doesn't have any epoxy on it. And then what I do is I set them in here, and I'll put super glue right on the edge of this so that I've got super glue running this way and that way. And I do that on all 4 edges. And then I will line it up as close as I can eyeball it. And because I've got super glue that's actually run over this edge, I'll spray it with the activator on both sides when I've got it lined up. And then I will set it into my little clamp blocks, and I just put a couple of clamps on it, and it's set. And they won't move because they're locked in with the super glue. So, yes? This stuff? Well, these pieces are the corners off of it.
Yeah, right there. You're layering.
This is 1/8 inch plywood and then 1/16 inch veneer. And right now I've just got walnut and mahogany veneer, and I just do whatever pattern. Like this one is all walnut with 1/8 inch veneer, and the real thin veneer I've got maple. And so with this pattern, it's like walnut, the thin veneer, walnut, and then plywood, then one piece of walnut, and then another piece of plywood, and then I just go through that entire pattern and glue it up. I order all my veneer from Sour Veneer. They have been really good to me, well, to us. When the AAW symposium was in Raleigh, their headquarters is not far from Raleigh. So I went by there, and the guy that I was dealing with, the son of the owner, was already at the AAW symposium. And I explained to him what I was wanting, and I showed him some pictures and everything, and he goes, "Come on back to the warehouse, let's pick out some veneer." And we were there for probably a couple of hours picking out veneer. I mean, they just been super nice to me. But so all the veneer that I use is Sour. It comes from the Sour company. Well, these I special order. The walnut and mahogany are 10 inches wide and either 3 or 4 feet long. I can't remember now exactly, but they cut them whatever measurement you want, basically. And now that you've got me completely discombobulated, yeah, you do that every time. But yeah. So anyway, that's how I glue up, to get to these. And so, how good of a catch are you, Johnny?
Not very.
Well, you caught that one good. But that's just an example of, in fact, that piece is the corners off of this block. And then this is one that I glued up from another piece. And after I glue them up, I usually like to cut the sharp corners off of them because, again, I don't like to turn squares. And with the veneer is not so bad, but the plywood, because one of the layers of plywood is going cross grain to this. If you're not real careful, it's real easy just to peel that whole section of wood off. So first I'm going to make sure I've got this in real good. I have to keep remembering to do stuff better than I do at home. So now I would just kind of get this thing ready, and what I'm going to do is actually show a tool that I use. So I'll clean a little bit material out of the way. Okay, how is that? Is that bad? So I'm just going to remove a little bit of this material on the end as soon as I get my tool rest set. I like to turn as fast as I can without the lathe shaking. If the lathe starts vibrating, I slow it down. But other than that, warp speed. Okay, I'm going to knock off that end. And this stuff does not turn worth a flip. I mean, it is like turning just glued up plywood, basically. And in fact, on the bigger pieces, this piece or bigger, I rough them out with a carbide tool, a mic hunter tool, because even just roughing that shape out right there with high-speed steel, I'd probably have to sharpen the tool at least 3 times, maybe 4 times, because it gets dull so fast because of the glue. West Systems epoxy. Yes. Well, the reason why I use the epoxy to begin with is for time. I use the slow or extra slow epoxy, and on a glue up, let's say like this, I was doing about a 1/2 inch at a time, to where if I was trying to use regular, even the slow set tight bond, I wouldn't be able to get close to that because it will start drying faster than you can get the layers built up, because you're spreading the glue out on both sides of each one. So, and that is safety-wise. I could probably do 1.5 times that, but I'm just not in a hurry. So I just figure about a 1/2 inch at a time. It's good. And I always finish with the plywood. And then that gives me like a barrier between the glue. I'll put a piece of plastic over the top of this, like a tarp material, and then my board that I'm going to clamp it with, and then I clamp it up. And like on the top of this, you can see a little bit of glue out here. I mean, that's really probably worse than normal. but I will scrape that down and lightly sand it and then just put the next layers on top of it. And the other thing I like to do is go to the next layer before the glue is completely set up. Even the slow West Systems doesn't cure for like 48 hours. So I will do a layer about every 24 hours. So even then, if I do have a little bit of glue residue on it, it still should be to where they will bond together. And the only piece that I've ever had a crack in was actually a piece of the plywood. And I just filled it with epoxy and just kept on going. So. It's a gluing epoxy that West Systems has 4 different resins or hardeners that you can get with it. There's fast, slow, extra slow, and then one that is for actually clear coating. And that one is, the hardener has a UV protectant, and what it's basically for is sealing wood, and then you put marine varnish on top of it. But that way it's completely sealed up before you ever start putting the finish on top of it. So, and I use that for, actually I've started making pen blanks and stuff. I don't remember where I put it. Oh, here is one that is actually a reject. And the reason why it's a reject is it never got completely hard. So I'm playing around with different epoxies and stuff. I love the pattern and the colors, but that is as well as I could get the finish on it, because if it's not completely hard, you can't polish it very well. But that's just an example. This is actually another little thing I was going to hand out and I forgot it. This was glued up opposite of this right here, and I was going to attempt to do something different with it, and I just didn't like it. So I'm going to put a little hole in here. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and drill it, because I'm going to be drilling in a second. But this is a 1/4-inch drill bit, and that is the size hole that I'm going to use to hollow this with. But I want to show you real quick the one tool that I use a lot for miniatures, and why I ground it the way that I did. So these are just little blanks. This one is high-speed steel, and this one is carbide, and it's an 1/8 inch diameter. And you can tell that one sticks really well because it's high-speed steel. That one barely even has any magnetism because it's carbide. It's not a real high-grade carbide, but it's carbide. So this will hold an edge a lot longer than this tool will. But I'm not going to throw that one. If you know what Cindy Drozda's Vortex tool is, it's ground real similar to that, but it's so that I can cut going in either direction. Okay, so this tool, like I said, is ground to where I can go in either direction with it. So, and I've got a designated top to this thing, and what I found out with, on the side of my CBN wheels, you have that little flat spot. I thought, well, I don't use that anyway. I'm going to go ahead and try sharpening this, and if it tears it up, it's no big deal. It put an edge on it. So, but anyway, with this tool, I can go in either direction while I'm hollowing. And that makes it really nice for when I'm going down and trying to get the bottom out of it. So now let's go ahead and start shaping. And I'm going to put the live center back in here just, yes. Do what now? eBay. You can get anything you want either from eBay or Amazon. I'm serious. Yes. Oh, the question was, where did I get the carbide, the little round rods? And it was on eBay. And I've had those for years. But I'm sure you can still get them. And you can get them in all different diameters. So you can make bigger ones or smaller ones, whatever you want with them.
So those are an 1/8?
These are an 1/8. I wanted something really small in the beginning, it was so that I could do finer detail. I'll just go ahead and show you while I've got this out.
Also get that rod stop at the surplus store in CDC.
CDC, yeah. Originally, this one is ground, and again, I don't know if we can see it anywhere, but it's ground like a skew. And so with this one, because it's so thin and tapered, I can get it into real fine little cracks in areas. And I'll also use this to part this little thing off when I hollow it out. It makes a really neat little parting tool. And then the other one, I've got another one that's ground similar to this one, but it's rounded on the end. And if I wouldn't try shaping these with a CBN wheel, but I've got a greenstone for sharpening carbide for a metal lathe. So that's real quick and easy, just like a regular wheel would cut high-speed steel. A green wheel will cut carbide. So let's do a little shaping. This is just a 1/2-inch spindle gouge. And after getting ready for the class, I did a whole bunch more spindle turning that I'm used to. And so I've completely reshaped my tools, my spindle gouges. And this is also a little bit bigger than what I want to do. Let's go down to about there. And let's get some of this out of the way. And when I'm shaping, I like everything to just have a nice fluid curve to it. And I don't even know if y'all can hear me or not over this. The one thing that's very noticeable about turning miniatures or hollowing miniatures especially, they're noisy because you're getting a lot of vibration through the wood. But I'm just going to go ahead and what I really liked about these things to begin with were the eyes. So I called them iPods. And like I said, I'm having a lot of fun doing nothing, basically, just making a little crappy things. And I'm going to round this top off a little bit more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this section down to the depth that I want to hollow it. So let's just say that right there where that line is, that is going to be the depth that I'm going to hollow it. So now I need to get rid of that. And then, like I said, I'm going to use a 1/4-inch drill bit to drill the hole in there. And it will also be my depth gauge. So I've got this line right there that's going to be the farthest down I want to go. So I'm going to mark my drill bit, that depth. Yeah, I can see it. So now I know how far down I want to go. And that has started getting some material out of the way. And so now I'm going to go to this little carbide rod, and that's going to be what I use to get more material out of the way. Because all I'm trying to do right now with this tool is get rid of some of this material so that I can go in there with the hook tool. And I will go in at the most aggressive angle I can through that little hole. And I'm just going to start sweeping it back and forth. And it would help if I was going a little bit faster. Do what now? What facet? You mean as far as this way, or just the grind? The grind, it's close, or probably more like a those grinds where you put a little bit of an angle on the end. A what? Well, no, for a scraper, a negative rake scraper. It's kind of like that. It's just at a slight angle down. And again, with this right here, it really isn't that important what grind it is, as long as it's got some edge on it that I can sweep it back and forth. So I've grounded on 3 different spots, basically. And I could probably use any of the 3, but the longer one that I've ground is after the top. I always know that the long grind is my top. And these things will get hot because they're thin. They transfer heat real fast. So a lot of times I just hold it up here. I don't even put any pressure on the rod itself. So I've got a little bit of material out of there, not a lot, and I don't have a set of calipers really small enough for these, so I just use this. And you can tell I can't even get a good reading yet because I don't have enough material out of here. Now, once I start getting material out of here, then this caliper will start going in better, and of course, this side will get narrower. So I've still got a lot of material to get out of there. And one of the materials that or things I've used for years to do miniatures is dental picks. And one of the guys that was a friend of Ples McGee told me about using dental picks. So this goes way back to the late 90s. But I've got one that's a quick hook, and then one that's more of a shallow hook. And I actually like to use this one the best. But you can tell by looking at it that I've got a little bit, this has actually got pretty dull. This one is still pretty clean. So let me use this one real quick, and then I'll hand it around. But to do this, and I also need to clean that out. And this is just a stainless steel straw, which I use now to if I was at home, I'd use an air compressor. But to do these, the one thing you have to remember is if you try to take too much bite with it, it's going to just sit there and start vibrating really bad. So it's just a real light cut. And I was going to show you, this is acrylic. This was for a bottle stopper or something. I can't remember now what. But anyway, I bought it years ago and didn't do anything with it. And then Cheryl has Cheryl has a shadow box. So I thought, oh, I'll do a little vessel out of it. So I used a dental pick to hollow this, and I didn't really think that much of it until I did this one day. So it is actually thin enough that light will go through it, and you can also see all the lines where it cut with that dental tool. So y'all can look at that, and which, huh? I didn't know if you could catch. I mean, but while I was doing that, I forgot about this. I cut this in half thinking I'm going to cut this in half and show off how good of a hollower I am. And what I found out was that I was lucky that I didn't go through the darn thing. It is so thin. So that is kind of how they look when they hollow, and that I won't though because it'll probably float. But so anyway, I'm going to do a little bit of hollowing with this dental tool. And you can tell that it's slow, a very slow process, but it will work. Now, on something that big, I could probably, get pretty much around in here, but I couldn't go very deep with it. And so I got thinking about what kind of a tool I could find or make, because this is a mini hollowing that from Robert Sorby, and there's no way it's going to go through there. This is a mini Mike Hunter tool, and it's not going to go through there. So a lot of people over the years have used Allen wrenches to put an edge on and get in there. Well, you still can't get way up into this corner, and I just never liked, even though I tried it, I did use this thing and it'll work, but I just don't like it. So I, for a while, was using files that I would just grind into a little mini hook tool that I could get over there. The problem with that is they break. The material is very easy to break in a file. So that was not such a great idea. So finally, I thought, what can I use to make a tool with? And this is a 1-inch spade bit. And I cut this little hook tool out of this. In fact, it's got the one, you can still see it. And this thing works like a champ. Yes. And I'll tell you something else. If you have, if you're trying to make tools like this, it works so much better if you have a belt sander. I watched one of those shows about guys that make custom knives and everything, and they have these great big, huge belt sanders, which I can't afford. So I made one myself, and I shaped this whole thing out in nothing flat with a belt sander. It's actually an 80 grit, but the company is called Combat Abrasives. And I saw an advertisement for them, and I said, there's no way that can be real. Well, it is. You can sit there, and I took this thing and just basically laid it against the belt, and you can just push it, and the material is just going like you wouldn't believe. And so that's, like I said, I did this entire shaping with a 2-inch wide belt on a belt sander. And if I had tried to do that with a grinder, I'd probably still be there. It is just so much quicker. But anyway, if you think I'm going to hit the bullseye, you're wrong. But I mean, you can see, you know, from that to that. And this is probably going to replace my hook tool that I use for doing ornaments. I like it that much. If y'all are good there, let's see here. I had some other hook tools here. As you can see, I like making hook tools. These are different ones that I've made for doing small, medium, and large, heavy things. But this was my hollower for Christmas tree ornaments. And you can see it's just got the little hook, and that hook is right in line with this. So, stay there. Now that I have this, I think it'll be so much easier to hollow with. I mean, I'll have to try a Christmas tree ornament for sure to know, but I just think this is going to work a whole lot better. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and hollow with this a little bit, and then I will let you all see it. The one thing with tools like this is the reason why it's got that offset hook is so that when you're hollowing, you want to be on the shaft. That will keep it from trying to roll over so much. And let's see here. I need to go down just a little bit. That's the one thing about these two. You don't have a lot of room for moving your tools up and down. It's either going to go in the hole or it's not. So and like I said, it's noisy. And something else with doing the miniatures is the shavings, it will get packed in there real quick because there's not a lot of room in there. And I've never had it happen, but I've been told if you get too many shavings in there and it packs in, it can actually lock against the tool and it'll rip your piece up. So, I mean, it's just something to think about. But who told me that? You are now my helper. Your job is to make sure I look good. So now you can see I'm getting a little bit of material out of there. Because these are at an angle, it's actually thinner than what this looks like. So you're kind of guessing along with these. And like I said, it would be nice to have a little bitty tiny set of calipers. I'm just not going to take the time to work on it. So, but I've got material out down to about halfway. So I can go ahead and remove a little bit more. Who's yawning? And the other thing with making these tools like this, you want to make sure that you round off all of your edges. Because if you don't and you rub it up against there, your hole is going to keep getting bigger. And this has actually gotten a little bit loose. But that is probably about as much as I'm going to do with that tool. So right through there, about the bottom of the eye, we're probably about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more. But anyway, like I said, if you go at a little bit of an angle, it's going to be just a little bit thinner than that probably. So that's as thin as I want to go through there. So now I will go back to this round carbide and finish it out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find where I left off with this hook tool. Oh, I was going to show this around. No, I don't. Not yet. So I'm going to come in, and right about there at that angle, I can feel a step that I didn't. That's as far as I went with that hook tool. So I'm going to start from there and basically try to go all the way down the side and then clean out a little bit in the bottom, and it should be done. So that is as much as I would do. And down in the bottoms of these things, like I said, unless you just had a little bitty tiny set of calipers, you can't get down in there and really tell for sure. But if this is anywhere accurate, it's just like that piece I handed around. I'm pretty thin right down through this bottom section. So once I've got it all hollowed out the way that I want, how are we doing on time? Great? Okay. What? Okay, we've got a little bit of time left. So that is the bottom of the hollowed out area. So now I'm going to go ahead and finish the shape. I'm going to add some length to it so that the hollowed out part, I don't go through the bottom basically, hopefully. I've got a little bit of a high spot right there, but I'm not going to worry about it. So at this point is when I would do all of the sanding on this thing, because I can actually get past where I'm going to cut it off. And then again, to cut it off, I'm going to use that little skew looking piece. And this is also how I grind my parting tools. And the reason that I grind them at an angle is so that when I go through and it actually finally breaks off, it's only going to be breaking right at that tip, not that whole width of this thing. So you get a much cleaner break in it. And so with that one actually kind of broke off because it's right on the plywood that's going across grain. That would not, that's just pure one of those things that happens. So now that we have that done, like I said, this would be all sanded, ready to go except for the bottom. And so I'm going to make a tenon to mount this with. And I need, this is what I call it my sizing tool, which anybody that has seen me do demos knows what this tool is. It's just 3/8 inch round bar, high-speed steel that I grind at an angle. It's not quite as angular as a skew, but what I like about it is I can take very fine little cuts with it and size stuff up for like boxes or anything like that. And it's also, probably if I'm going to use a skew, I'll just grab this. I'm not going to even worry about using a real skew. So, but anyway, this is, and I'll try to show you, this will actually cut on this curved side right here. And that's what I'm doing right there. And it is really surprising at how well this thing cuts going on that side. I really can't explain it, but it just does. But I'm going to, like I said, make a tenon. To reverse and I think we're a little bit big. And I'm cutting it at a little bit of an angle so that if I go too small out on the edge, hopefully somewhere on that angle, it will actually fit. And if it does, it's right on the bottom of it. So we'll try that again. And I'll spin it around a little bit and hopefully make a mark, a burnish mark on the wood so that I'll have a better idea of the diameter. And if I can get this on there without splitting it. So now what I can do, and I thought I had a little piece of sandpaper somewhere. There we go. I'm not really going to do any sanding, but with it like that right there, that's just on there tight enough that it's going to stay there. So I'd slow the lathe down, and I'd put my thumb on the tool rest and then press it up against that piece, and with my my finger and my thumb, I can actually control that, and now I can finish the bottom of it so that I don't have, you know, any part of this thing that isn't finished sanded. And so now that I have, you what? It didn't get near as much out of it as I thought I did. But since I have that right there, if I'm going to make a lid for this thing like this, that the hair can go in, I've already got it started. So I'm going to get rid of some more of this material. Do what now? Probably not. Well, actually, I'm sure I wouldn't. The one thing that happens with these, especially because of the plywood or a light-colored wood, you'll get light-colored sawdust in the darker woods. And so before any of these, especially the bigger ones, before I put any finish on them, I take an air gun and really blow them out. And on the big ones, I even take a little brush sometimes to get it, where it's really bad. On these, I will just kind of blow them out and hope that the finish, I use a marine varnish to finish them with. And so usually if it's not real bad, they'll kind of all blend in. But I like I said, I always blow them off before I put some finish on them. So we're going to say, and with this tenon being so tight, I could either try to cut it a little bit smaller or just sand it a little bit. And I just want it snug is all I'm wanting it to be. And that is still a little bit tighter than what I would want it. Where's my sandpaper go? Because knowing me, if I tried to do that with a tool, it would now be sloppy. And it's not super tight. I almost sanded it too far, but I think it'll stay in by itself. So now that is going to be the top, and I need to cut that off with something. Well, actually, I'm going to clean this face up a little bit. And now that I have that, so that hopefully I don't forget it or lose it. It's the pits when you got a floor full of shavings and you lose something like that in your shavings, but that's part of wood turning. So I'm going to put my drill back in, and it should be pretty close to that diameter if I didn't enlarge the hole. And since I've got that thing so long, I dropped it. I found it. Okay, let's see how well this works. See, so I did enlarge that hole just slightly. So to enlarge that hole, to try to get this to fit. I'm going to go back to this round. I'm going to get that out of the way or I'll be bleeding again. And I'm going to just try to real lightly enlarge that hole. And all I have to do is get it to where it's stuck in there and fairly true. So now I'm going to put a little dimple in there. And that is for a smaller drill bit. And there we go. So this, and I was going to remember what size it was because I figured somebody would ask and I don't remember. Huh? It's small. It's on your drill bit box thing, it's the drill bit bigger than 1/16. So whatever that is. I figured Joe can figure that one out. If he can't, I'm very disappointed. What? That's it. Yep, I knew it. Okay, so I'm going to drill down about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit deeper than that. And this is going to be for the horsehair to go into. So to put in the horsehair, I'm going to use epoxy, and I'm going to go ahead and do this part, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out of the chuck. So that I have a semi-stable deal. And I'm going to take some blue painter's tape, just a small little section of it, and I'm going to cover that hole, and then take the drill bit and poke through it. So now I can get my epoxy down in there without making a mess. Hopefully, oh, ye of little faith. So, I'm telling you, you're as bad as my wife. What did I do with my brush? Crap. Oh, there it is. This brush I bought when I was in high school. I took drafting as my drafting brush, and it was like this. It was so worn out. So I've been using it to do all the horsehair, but I'll just pick one of them out, put some tape around it, and cut it off. And there's no way I can get all of that hair in there, so I'm going to figure out roughly what I think I can get in and pull the rest of it out. Somewhere around in there, let's say. Maybe not quite all of it, but anyway. So now I'm going to mix up some fast set epoxy. Maybe. There we go. Oh, way too much. I hate these. I love these bags, but I hate them too. So now we've got our epoxy out. And I just use toothpicks, because that's what I'm going to put it in with anyway, to mix it. And I don't think I need this anymore. So once I get the glue mixed up pretty good, I'm going to just very lightly dip it into it and just stick it enough down in there that I know I've got like a little pool down in there of epoxy. What's the whispering over there?
Oh, I said people don't realize how much trouble you go through to make something small.
Oh, yes. But, I mean, if I was at home, I could have done 2 of these already. I mean, that's what I like about doing the miniatures. I'm really having a lot of fun doing miniatures again. Okay, what do I do with my horsehair? There it is. So, now I need to get the tape off of it. And because of what I'm going to talk about here in a second, I'm going to, and I've still got more hair than I will ever get in there because it's a very small hole, but I'm going to jam some of it down in there and get rid of the rest. And then I can just sit there and keep putting more in it to where if it was super glue, it would probably be set already. And you just want to make sure you don't pull it back out. But let's just say he's having a bad hair day. So I've got one little strand there. So anyway, I would let that completely set up, and then what I do, because I don't want to just rip this tape off, I will actually split the tape and peel it around the hole. And in that way that the hair stays in it, which I can go ahead and just see if I can do that. And I've got scissors. So I've got that off of it. So, oh crap, there we go. Now where'd it go? There we go. So that would now be our thing, and I did get a little bit of glue up there, or that's reflective off the tape. But anyway, that's one of my miniatures. Thank y'all. Yeah. Back here.
So cute. Looks like a little owl.
My favorite one is the one over there that has the hat. I'm going to actually give that to Johannes Michelson next time I see him because I titled it The Mad Hatter.
Oh,
So, any questions? Yeah.
In your opinion, which is harder to hollow, the laminated or just the solid wood?
Oh, laminated is way harder.
Because of the glue.
Yes. It's just like turning the outside. That if I'm doing something even simple like this is about as simple a hollow vessel as you can do. And I did all of that with a Mike Hunter carbide tool. I would not even attempt to use high-speed steel in here. It just dulls it too quick. So, but anything else? Thank y'all.
Well, when I woke up, she was looking at me. She told me I've been cheating on her in her dream. Lord, it wasn't a thing I could do or say to change her mind any way. She told me that things was gonna change. If I wanted her, I couldn't stay the same, so I stopped